Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More, and my special guest Andrew, welcoming you to this week's episode of What Did You Think? So if you saw our last episode on What Did You Think, you'll know that the movie that came up was from the sci-fi genre, in which we were talking about the 2014 movie Edge of Tomorrow, or Live, Die, Repeat, or All You Need Is Kill, or are there any other titles for this movie, Andrew?
They named this movie Edge of Tomorrow and they have to live with that. Let's just stick with that.
Yeah, and to replace that movie on the sci-fi genre for the next spin, we have put in there a movie that celebrates its 20th anniversary this year, which is The Matrix. He's projecting bullet time, just in case you didn't know. Or was it some sort of special mime?
No, it's a subtle impression. I'm sure people got it.
So the Twisted Spinner picked for this episode a movie from the thriller genre. So to replace this film on the Twisted Spinner for the thriller, we have gone with a movie that came out in the early 2000s, in 2001, which is called Joyride, which in England was released at the time as Roadkill, and then they retitled it. So it's a movie starring Paul Walker and Steve Zahn.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
I don't know, but I remain. I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised.
Hopefully you will.
Or horrified. Either way works.
Okay. So the movie that the Twisted Spinner picked for today is the 2018 movie Searching, which is directed by Aneesh Chaganty, and it stars John Cho and Debra Messing. So, Searching. Had you heard much about this movie? Because I believe you suggested this for the Spinner, and I had no idea because I'd never heard of this film.
I think it's come up before that I'll pick something because it was at the cinema and either I didn't have time for it or I went, I don't want to go and see it. And then I see this channel and this show as an opportunity to correct past mistakes. So pardon me for being exploitative.
That's fine.
This was... this came out in cinemas the end of August or beginning of September last year. I do have very clear memories of going to see Ant-Man and the Wasp with a friend, and the trailer for this played, and they went, "Oh, that looks good. I want to see that. Do you want to see it, Andrew?" And I think I had other plans, which looking back at my list, I think included Black Klansman. And Alpha, if you even know what that is, I don't blame you for not knowing what that is. It's a boy and his dog trying to get home movie, except the boy is a cave boy and the dog is a wolf.
Okay.
So it's The Revenant, but family friendly. So yeah, I was thinking I ought to look at this because it either did very well at the box office for like the 2 or 3 weeks that it was out, or at least people were critically raving about its unique format or how it plays with its format. As okay, maybe there is something here. I ought to check this out and see if people are right.
Yeah. So, can you describe the plot of this movie?
This entire movie takes place on a computer or a computer screen. The whole plot unfolds from webcams and search engines and Facebook and social media sites. It's all from the perspective of this. But the basic plot that we see unfold on this tablet or computer screen is that John Cho, good old... reboot J.J. Abrams, Mr. Sulu himself, is the father, David Kim, the father of a daughter, Margot. There was, as we see in the opening 5 minutes, there was a mother in there, but she got a blood disease, and despite home videos of, oh, we're getting through this, and oh, we're going out, and we see on the calendar, mum coming home, we see that shifted forward a month, and then it gets deleted, and suddenly the mother's not there anymore. We see funeral services and condolence messages on Facebook. But shuffle forward a while, and the Margot has been piano prodigy, or at least she does well at school. She's a good girl and she's taking piano lessons, and that's how David continues to see her, even though she's a teenager. She's growing up, but oh, look at my girl going off to piano lessons, and always remember to take the trash out and to take your laptop. You know, they communicate mainly by because of the bereavement they're silently and quietly going through. They're mostly restricted to phone conversations these days. But what in the middle of the night, a couple of phone calls come from Margot, the daughter, or I want to FaceTime you, but this is like 3 a.m. at night and he's asleep. And oh, sorry, I didn't catch your phone calls. Are you okay? And oh, you didn't take the trash out. You didn't take your laptop with you. And she doesn't come back. Oh, she must be in her piano lessons. All right, hello. Is Margot there? Sir, your daughter cancelled her piano lessons 6 months ago. But I've been giving her money. What's she spending it on? He has to go and look on Facebook for her friends because he personally does not know who her friends are. That's how out of touch he is. They're going on a camping trip. Okay, I'm a bit miffed, but all right. Oh, is Margot there? She's going on the camping trip. She's been on the camping trip with you. Sir, Mr. Kim, Margot didn't come with. She never turned up. So then it becomes a police investigation with Detective Rosemary Vick saying, I've been assigned to your case, don't worry, sir, but can you help us find her? But the more they investigate and the more he does his own investigations and search engines, the more anonymous friends on the internet called Fish and Chips turn up, the more, wait, Margot got a driving license? Wait, Margot's got a private account that she didn't tell me about? What has she been doing? Do I know her really well? And what more to the bloody point, what's happened to her?
That's pretty much the plot, isn't it, really?
Yes.
Yeah, it's an unusual one. I suppose kudos to the production company that made this, because as we said, it's kind of groundbreaking with the fact that it's all done through the perspectives of laptops, tablets, and mobile phones and everything like that. But
webcam images of John Cho looking nervous and what's going on, and the daughter talking to people, and
it does feel very gratuitous to these big companies, the advertisements, Facebook, Google, Twitter,
actual names.
All of these companies, you know, they're all, you know, the movie originally starts with this whole backstory of, you know, the David Kim and his wife Pamela and their baby, you know, Margot, growing up and stuff, and it's all done through a Windows computer, and then it changes to Apple, which is obviously it's showing the progression of technology over the years. So this is when they start showing off pictures of the daughter on YouTube and Facebook and all the other social media things and everything like that. So this very much feels like this is a movie that works with current technology.
You feel that they paid these people, or
I'm wondering if this movie,
because in movies you get not Apple and not Google, and there is something in this movie called UChat or UTalk or something.
I think they're all real companies, but what I'm thinking is I'm wondering that if these companies may have paid the production of this film to have actually gone into play, because it's using their brands in theory. And what's interesting is that this is a movie that's been put out by Sony, and I don't think you really see any Sony branding in this movie. No PlayStation 4s or televisions or laptops made by Sony or anything like that, or even their phones, because their phones are iPhones.
Well, maybe that's more to their strength, or maybe they distributed it rather than had any active participation. This is me guessing out thin air here. But
well, it's produced by Screen Gems, which is a studio that Sony own, which I think before that they brought out the Resident Evil movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's a very unique movie. This I really am puzzled as to how could this movie have worked theatrically.
You mean if it was shot normally, or
how
it
with
worked
this film,
in a cinema?
Yeah, how this film works in the cinema when it's all done through the perspective of laptops, mobile phones, and stuff like that. Because for me, it was quite a hard watch with this restriction of point of view.
So when you say unique, are you in your opinion saying unique equals good here?
This is where it's very hit and miss for me, because I think the movie is very clever and it's very good for what it is. For me, it's not repeat viewing at all, and I'm saying this very early in the review here, but I just found it was quite difficult. But at the same time, it's done from the perspective of that everyone is now invested heavily in social media, and they look at the world through their computer screens. And again, point of views, in my opinion, are portrayed here quite interestingly, such as David Kim. He's kind of doing his own investigation, as any parent would do, in trying to look for his missing daughter. But there are times in this movie that you see little snippets from the news where they're saying like, "Oh, David Kim, we have so much sympathy for you losing your daughter." And then later on you see a specific scene, which I'm not going to mention, in which David Kim does something which maybe he shouldn't have done. And then the whole backlash from all the people are going, "What kind of parent are you? Why would you do this?
He is crazy, lol. Ooh, maybe he's the killer, ha ha ha. Don't say that. If you lost your daughter, you do the same thing. Ooh, maybe it was a paedophile."
What did you think of that?
They got it's the way this is made, all credit to them for pulling it off, because it must have been a logistical nightmare with all the webcams and that. In that respect, it in the long run, it's a novelty, because it can only really work the once effectively with this movie. But in using technology and social media to highlight what is really a very Hitchcockian rear window plot. Yeah, there, I said it. I'm not ashamed of that. But from the perspective of today's technology and how, as we say, how it would be perceived through social media. I mean, that scene I just described of everybody's YouTube and Facebook reactions, it really got across that this is already a traumatic enough event for a parent, and then how you're under such scrutiny.
Well, it's like with things in general, like, you know, like with text messages. I find text messages very difficult to sometimes understand, because you can't always tell if someone is being serious or jokey or angry and nasty. It's very difficult. And with the feedback that David Kim gets after the situation that he went through, and everyone was going against him, and they had sympathy at first, and they're all against him and stuff like that. But it's, I suppose, this is a very unique movie, and the fact that this only cost $1 million to make, and it's made a profit. But it was always going to make a profit. But
yeah,
you know,
and I normally say that's in a derogatory, or maybe say this in a sniffy fashion, that you've got things like Paranormal Activity, those movies, but more relevant, Unfriended, those two movies that unfolded entirely from the perspective of a webcam conversation, and who's using our dead friend's profile? It's the dead friend's ghost. But
I'm glad you mentioned Unfriended.
But yeah, it's I'd normally say, well, of course it didn't cost you that much, because all you had to use was computers, and you're trying to get a cheap laugh or a cheap scare out of this. But for a good portion of this movie, I would say that you actually pulled off using the technology and using the message and using it as a story structure. I would say though that it where it works is as a sort of psychological thriller from the perspective of a bereaved or a father who's going through this horrible traumatic event, and it's John Cho that pulls this off with his facial expressions and his intensity. As an investigation, as a crime procedural investigation thing, maybe it's because I've watched too many movies, but I could there are twists, and I could see them coming. When something pops up in the corner of a screen, you think that's going to be a clue later on, isn't it? Or when a character arrives, you think you're going to be relevant somehow, aren't you? Don't try disappearing into the background. I see you. You're not fooling anyone.
Yeah.
So, and the ending, without saying what it is, the last twist made me think, yeah, pure American cop show. And I also don't think the soundtrack's very good either. Because it is one of those soundtracks. Maybe you couldn't just have clicky, clicky, clicky. I'm scared. I don't know where my daughter is. You couldn't have that. Maybe they felt you can't have that through the whole, however long this movie is.
100 minutes or so.
100 minutes. No, you have to have a twinkly piano music that's gentle, because this is a happy time with your daughter, or a violin as you discover something, and ooh, this is ominous. We get it. We don't need you to tell us what mood we should be in.
It does seem weird to have music for a movie like that.
Yeah.
No. I suppose with this movie, you could see similarities, as this is the 21st century Blair Witch Project, basically.
It's doing something that's slightly different to the problem with when you bring up Blair Witch Project is that there are so many. It spawns so many imitations. It spawns so many. We're doing a project where we're wandering into a crypt or a abandoned area, or we think we're students and we're walking into a place because we're investigating ghostly images, and oh my god, there is a ghost, run away, oh my god, now we're dead.
Because I kind of look at it as that the one that they never pay tribute to is that the first sort of found footage movie is 1980s Cannibal Holocaust, which I think that is the one where the Blair Witch picked up his inspiration from, and then subsequently after Blair Witch you had all these other imitations.
Yeah, but when you say it feels like the 21st century Blair Witch, you feel that it's going to be as iconic or as memorable or
not
as
really
imitated as
not
that.
Really. It's the next step in the chain. So originally
you have cameras, now you've got computers.
Yeah, to this kind of shows, even though clearly all these webcam shots are clearly done through professional digital quality cameras. But it wouldn't surprise me in the future that eventually some films will be made cheaply through filming on phones or tablets. And
there is a movie that's already done that.
Yeah.
The Tangerine Project.
Okay.
I can't remember its name right now, but I swear to God, they made a hoo-ha about this is all phoned on an iPhone. I ought to find it and show it to you at one point, but I think it was called Tangerine something.
Okay. I suppose we don't want to spoil too much more about the movie, but I would like to talk about the production and the cast. So I'm going to do this first, which is, I don't know much about the director, Aneesh Chaganty, so I apologise. But I want to talk about one of the producers of this film, which is a Russian guy called Timur, I'm going to get this wrong saying it, Bekmambetov. Now, he is a guy who directed these vampire movies that came out in the early 2000s called Night Watch and Day Watch.
Which a lot of my film studies colleagues at university were raving about. Oh, wow, man, I went to see this at the cinema. It was so cool. And I can't vouch for that.
And then he got into American movies and did Wanted with James McAvoy and
the Angelina Jolie is an assassin movie.
Yeah. And he's also followed that up on his CV with Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh God, I remember that crap. Yeah.
And he's also produced as well a movie that I would say is quite unique as well, which hopefully we could cover at some point on Matt's Movies, which is Hardcore Henry.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people go about, oh, how that was kind of like this in a way, how it was done from a unique perspective, and it got acclaim for that.
And then, obviously, as you said earlier, one of the movies that this guy produced as well was Unfriended. So basically, this is coming from the same makers of that.
Yeah.
But then you did say that looking at his filmography, that he was also responsible for the god awful remake that came out a few years ago.
Ben-Hur.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard the
Don't.
feedback. Yeah.
Morgan Freeman with dreadlocks.
Oh God. So yeah. So do you think that this filmmaker is trying hard to come up with new techniques, given Hardcore Henry, Unfriended, and now Searching?
There is a pattern here, yes. I don't know if it will go anywhere in the if it can go anywhere in the near future, but based purely on how this decent. I hesitate to call it truly good or great, but decent way that this turned out. I hope it could find anything else to do with this, although that's kind of the underlying question here. Can you do anything else with this?
So I think it will get a bit stale very quickly.
Well, like the Blair Witch Project did, but that didn't really stop people, did it?
And the same with the branding as well. I think it was like a glorified product placement kind of movie with all these brands showing up.
They must have been really pleased, yeah.
That's why I wonder if maybe they had a hand in the financing, because clearly their products were being pushed into the viewer's face. YouTube, Google, iPhone, etc. You know, but I thought this was a very unique movie. The acting by John Cho, as you said, who plays Mr. Sulu in the Star Trek reboots. As the father, I think he does a really good job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't agree with a lot of the things that, as a father, he would do, but then put yourself in that position.
You can see the position where he comes from at the beginning of the movie, because they do make a big hoo-ha about he's typing to his daughter, "I'm proud of you," and he's about, you can see he's about to type, "and your mother would be proud too," but then he deletes it because obviously there's an uneasy tension there with him and his daughter at that time, which he's going through that, and then he goes through this, and John Cho really portrays that in a I want to say sympathetic way, or at least he obviously goes through the motions and the realization by the time we get to the climax.
Do you think that this is quite interesting?
I mean, like you say, this is all about, ironically, about communication.
This is what I wanted to say, which is, do you think that this is quite a unique movie, given that this is the first sort of time where a parent is communicating with their child via social media and text messages and stuff like that, and the typical teenage response is like, "Yeah, Dad, I just want to get on and go and hang with my friends and stuff."
Well, they do the well, even though it shows some progress in that regard, they do play up the whole he's ignorant. He's ignorant of he's ignorant of you say you're friends on Facebook, but turns out those friends don't actually know them that well. That's, and also what's a Tumblr?
Yeah. It's quite funny when he says that too. And what about Debra Messing? Given that Debra Messing's background is primarily in comedy with Will and Grace and many other movies that she's done over the years, because she plays Detective Vic, and I think she does a really good performance in this as well.
She gives off the appearance of a committed, hard-working detective.
But you do often feel at times like there's, because David is kind of doing his own investigation, he's kind of getting in the detective's way, really, by constantly going, "Well, look, I found potential traces." And she's like, "Look, let us, Mr. Kim, do the investigation. This is what we are paid to do. You know, you can't keep getting involved because you're now making it harder to make us do our jobs, you know." And then you get these odd spanner in the works here and there with the movie's twists, as you said. It's a bit like a Shyamalan movie, but not as many unrealistic twists, I'd say.
Not unrealistic, but they are great big honking twists of, ooh, this is what's really going on.
Yeah, and there was one bit that I really liked in the movie, and I don't want to spoil it, but there was a scene in which you find out about a character, and then you just find out that this is a generic image from the internet, and you're like, wow.
Because you think that oh yeah, that can happen or
Yeah.
does happen.
And to be honest, this could be a movie which could actually show the potential dangers of social media, I would say. So
Yeah.
even if Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and all these other social media places have paid for this movie, maybe, I don't know, but it doesn't make them look very good regarding their safety and security, because the fact that David could go on Google and just do his own research by searching through all this public social postings, it kind of shows to me that people need to be a bit more, and this is me doing this as a nice bit of public warning, which is maybe if you are on social media, try and change your settings to a privacy setting where people can't go on Google and just look you up, just anyone, because you need to have the settings on there to keep your details and your personal data private.
Now we know, and knowing is half the battle.
That was a public service announcement on behalf of Matt's Movies, yes. Yeah. So, did you think it was okay for what it was?
Yes. I mean, like I say, as a police procedural, it's goes through some honkingly obvious story twists and turns, but some credit to the John Cho for carrying it as the bereaved, troubled father, but also credit to the format and for pulling it off, especially for pulling it off.
Do you think anyone else could have played this role, really?
It could.
Because do you think that John Cho's name could have sold this movie, or if you had a bigger name?
I think getting a star name was a large part of it.
Yeah, because clearly with the Unfriended movies and Hardcore Henry and stuff, you don't really have the home names, you know, for these films, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I will. As a final thought, you say I can't. Unfortunately, I can't comment on how it would have looked on a big screen, or what audiences would have taken to seeing it on a big screen. Would have that been a immersive enough experience in a cinema theatre? I'm glad I got the chance to rectify seeing it today, but I now kind of regret missing that opportunity. But because if it's now that it's available on streaming or available for commercial release, that watching it on your laptop or computer, like we did, is probably is the best way possible to view this.
Definitely, and I think this movie would have done more box office primarily from word of mouth and people checking it out online and home video. I don't think cinema. It was a limited theatrical run, I believe, in the States as well. So
yeah.
You know. But yeah, I suppose I can't really sum up any more about this movie apart from it was okay for what it was. I wouldn't never watch it again. I'm glad I did. But,
so check it out at least the once, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So I suppose that's searching, really.
And it is here.
Yeah, twister spinner time.
Okay.
So let's see if we can land on something really fun for the next video.
Especially after bereaved, traumatic, missing daughters.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's landed on drama. So let's have a look. So let's see what we got on drama.
Okay, I think I remember what this is, but you need to confirm it for me.
So we're going with the Robert De Niro movie, A Bronx Tale, which only just got added to the Twister Spinner.
Seems to be happening a lot recently.
Yeah, funny things like that. Yeah. So I'll be looking forward to talking about that one. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. And what did you think of Searching? Is it something you guys have seen? Are you into this whole found footage, but in like the technology way of watching it through a phone or a tablet or anything like that? Do you agree with me and Andrew? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to check out the official Facebook, Twitter and Instagram pages for this channel. You'll find out about all the upcoming videos and series that we do on here at the Movies of Andrew. If you want to find out about the latest films, my solo videos, plus we've got other series on here, hopefully coming up in the near future. So thank you very much, everybody. All the very best. And any closing statement?
Well, I think that's it. So where's the turn off or shut down button on this?
Oh yeah, I've got to shut the computer down now.
Right. Okay.
Bye-bye.